Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff After Hours. This is Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired 27-year veteran of the NYPD. I retired out of Manhattan North Homicide Squad. And with me tonight is, of course, the all-star cast that I try to bring to this show as often as I can. And straight out of Brooklyn, below me in the box here is Phil Grimaldi. How you doing tonight, Phil?
Pretty good, Billy. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm just full of expectation of what to expect from this show. I never know when we have the guy to your left, Joe Murray, on the show, what's going to come out of his mouth at $6.50 an hour.
Hey, Joe.
And I don't mean $6.50. I mean $650. That's what I'm worried about.
Price in this day and age. That's reasonable.
I know these attorneys are killing it. You know.
I'm just so happy to be here. I got to tell you, Bill, Phil, I am such a fan of the show. I spend all my off-duty time on the comment section. So great to be
and then,
here.
And you're not getting paid to do that either.
Yeah.
And in our upper right, we have the superstar from Midwest Equusearch, Dave Rader. Dave, welcome to the show. So great to have you here.
Appreciate for having me on your show, Bill.
You know,
Welcome,
so many
Dave.
people wanted to see you come back because this case has so many damn unanswered questions. It's unbelievable. I mean, you see these chats, and some of the questions are good, and some of them are redundant. Some of them have been asked a million times before, but the questions about a lot of people had questions about the canines, for example, and. Why don't you open up with that? You know, the use of a bloodhound, the use of the regular dogs, and specifically what you found in this case.
All right. So as far as the dogs are concerned, I mean, I consider them as a tool. I don't rely on them solely on dogs. I personally have not had good luck with dogs, but again, I will always use a dog if it's available to call it in, just as that tool. So in this case, when they reported her actually walking away from the house, immediately I believe that they would have called in a live scent tracking dog, which means that they would have secured the handler would have actually went into the house, got something that was specifically just from her as far as for a scent. They sent that individual, they sent the dog up, and then at that point in time, the dog should trail the very last thing that this individual did. So if she walked away from that house, that bloodhound should pick up that scent and trail right to where that individual went.
So the fact that the scent went down to the end of the road and stopped, is there a problem with that, do you think?
You know, that could either be two things. You know, that's when she left, her trail stopped because she was in the car and she left that house, or she got into a vehicle. But I've also seen live track dogs that as you're going down the road, you should be able to pick up a direction of travel from that vehicle, because the cells are still, because the car's not airproof. There's plenty of holes in it to where it is still letting that scent out, from what I've been told. So it should have given us, just stopping there, it should have given us a right or a left indication as far as what direction do the searchers, or what direction do we need to concentrate on.
Dave, I just want to read back to you a statement you made, maybe it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, on Duty Ron's show, and I was on the show, and I thought this was the most telling statement that you made in the whole time that I met you. And you said, "A stranger abduction, considering where this house is, does not make sense. The odds of that happening are slim to none. If she wandered away, one of the family dogs would have went with her." Do you still believe that?
I still think that, you know, your own pet would still follow you. That's my belief. I think that if the dog is as close to those kids as you know, they live in the same house. 9 times out of 10, if you have 8 dogs, one of them is going to follow one of those kids if they leave the property.
There was 13 dogs.
13 dogs. So even better. Your odds are increased by, you know, the kids play with the dogs. You know how they get attached, and the dogs get attached to that individual. So I think personally, how many cases have we heard that, you know, when a child does go missing? I've heard of several different occasions where the dog was found with the lost child. So to me, again, I'll still stand by my word as far as I don't think that it was a stranger abduction just because of where it was. And I do believe that one of those 13 dogs probably would have followed her into the end if she was home.
Another thing I wanted to ask was the day you got there, I had asked you, how well was it organized? Was it very well organized? And you indicated when I asked you that a couple of weeks ago that it was in fact very well organized, and you were given a certain geographic area to search. Do you stand with that today also?
Absolutely. Like I said, you know, they had everything marked as far as what areas that you were going to. I mean, that area was saturated, Bill. I mean, that thing was just absolutely, it's almost like they set up this perimeter. And again, if a child is in these, you know, again, the terrain was horrendous. I mean, you know, we were on hills that a damn billy goat wouldn't be able to sit there and traverse. So for this child, especially when I got there, she was reported missing on Tuesday. I was down there late Saturday night, so my first boots on the ground was that Sunday. So we're looking at about 5 days, and they're still surrounding this house. Again, my belief is that with as hot as it was, you're talking, you know, in the 90s, and a lot of people again don't understand that even though that you're under this canopy of the woods, it's even worse under there because there's no air movement. So then you couple that with she had no food, no water. So this child was in dire straits when I hit the ground on Sunday, or even before that. So she's either not moving very well, or she's somewhere just staying put because she doesn't have the energy. And I feel, in my heart of hearts, in what I've seen and what I've experienced just through my journeys, there's no way in hell 1,000 people would have missed this girl in this scenario, the way that they saturated this area. I just don't. If somebody missed her, I'd like to know how in the hell that happened.
You know, Dave, and then that takes us back to what we all felt was quite unusual, and that's the interview of Candace and Don, which we all, everyone that sees that doesn't feel good about watching that interview. Phil, you've seen it a number of times, correct?
Absolutely.
You want to give a few comments on the interview? I mean, I could play a little bit of it if you think that would.
You know what? I want to comment something to Dave first with regard to the dog.
Sure.
Then maybe play it. How's that go? Dave,
Sure.
First, I just want to say thank you so much for your the group of people that you're with, all the volunteers. I think it's a tremendous asset for law enforcement and for, you know, missing and missing people and people that are you know, out there someplace. Midwest Equusearch and you and Tim Miller. I just want to say thank you. It's really, really great to be part of such a professional group of people, and the work you're doing on this case and all the other cases. Thank you again. Real quick, with the dogs, did you get a sense when you got down there? Well, one, I wanted to know, the dogs, do they have like a time frame attached to when that scent would dissipate? Like, I know that from the little bit of experience that I had with dogs, the dogs would be on the scene relatively quickly. Like if we were chasing a perpetrator, he got into the woods, let's say, the dogs would be there relatively quickly. In this thing, there was probably a couple of hour time frame that I think might have gone between the time when the police were called and, you know, from when she was actually missing to the time the dogs got there. Does that play into this scenario at all?
I think anytime that you don't get on something right away, again, your things are starting to degrade as time goes on. And I think the quicker that you can be called in, and the quicker that you can sit there and rally the troops and surround and saturate, the better off you are. Now, with a live track, I've heard that after about 4 days to 5 days, you're starting to lose that scent. Now, with cadaver, on the other hand, that scent is always going to probably be there if the dog is trained highly enough to where it's just centered on the decomp. But
it also would probably ramp up as decomposition moves forward, especially in hot weather. The scents would probably get stronger. So,
I mean, you're probably not. Decomp starts immediately upon death,
right?
But you're absolutely right, Phil. As far as the hot days went on, we should have been able, after day 5 in that kind of heat, you should have had some sort of odor. And I'll tell you another thing that kind of threw me is, and people don't understand, but actually turkey buzzards. We actually go off of turkey buzzards because that's a good indicator of death in itself.
Right.
And I don't want to sit there and get too graphic, but I want to be real with people also.
Sure.
And to be honest with you, we had no vulture activity after day 5 or 6, and that's usually not a good indication that something's dead in and around that area.
Dave, did you get any sense or an indication? I know you were present with law enforcement when you got there, and it sounds like it was a very organized search. But what I'm looking for is, maybe, was there a direction that they thought, all right, we're going to be in this area? Did they narrow down a search area, or was it just go from the house and just work your way out?
So basically what they did, Phil, is they had the house. Now, I don't know what was done at the house, but I can tell you the grid pattern that I seen from the incident command from inside, and the mapping that they were doing and where they were sending us, is that everything in and around that house, I would have to say probably a 2-mile radius around that house was saturated. So, okay. I mean, then there was the thought that on that Saturday night that I got into town, which would have been 4 days after she went missing, is that somebody said that they found a footprint. Now, I don't know the truth about that, but they had TBI, FBI, they had some of the locals there late at night. I got into town about 11 o'clock, and they were still searching until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, from what I understand, because they went under the assumption is that, oh, hell, maybe if she was abducted, they're seeing all of this go down. They dropped her back off near the woods, and that she was now walking the woods by herself. So then they set up this good perimeter around there, and just kind of worked our way more towards the house to create that funnel effect.
Okay.
And again, we followed creeks. There wasn't a damn stone unturned. I can't imagine.
It sounds like the initial search was concentrated close to the home, I guess, with the belief that either she had wandered off, or she was somewhere close. That's basically what you're telling me. I mean, if we analyze what you just said.
Right. So basically what you do in a search scenario is that if the mother, in this case Candace, sits there and says, hey, my daughter walked away, you always go from the point last seen.
Sure.
And you just saturate the piss out of that area. Right. And again, as the investigation goes on, that's when things start to turn, that you might have to shift your search strategy, per se, to expanding that circle, depending on the scenario and what the investigation points and leads to.
Did you see a change in posture when you went back, like what I think was like 2 weekends ago, like the posture of the investigation, so to speak? Did they seem like they were, going in a different direction?
To be honest with you, Phil, I didn't talk to any law enforcement. My only contact was through text, which was with Tim Coop,
okay,
which was the incident commander. That was my point of contact, because I thought that he was still the guy to go to. He cleared everything. I took my people down there. I kind of went off of my own theory about about a timeline. I don't have any kind of timeline from TBI, FBI, Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, Tim Coop. I don't have anything except what I know is that the point of last seen physically outside of a family member telling us so is when they dropped they dropped the 15-year-old Hunter off at his house. And you have a picture of her in the back seat with her head against milk. That's, to me, is my point of last seen physically outside of that homestead, if that makes any sense.
Well, Dave, we always sort of conjectured, and all that really is conjecture right now, that she never made it back to the house. And I believe that. I believe she never made it back to the house.
Absolutely. That's what I went off of.
Giovanna Arioli from Hawaii. Dave Rader, you're so awesome. We have a lot of Dave Rader fans here, in the chat. All the way from Diane Fields. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Why wouldn't you be a Dave Rader fan? Because of all the amazing work they do. Wings of Hope. Thank you for the $2 super sticker. I just want to, to me, the case, the most important part of this whole case is the interview, and I want to just show that interview, which was available, of course, very early on in the investigation, and I just want to play that now.
I know she didn't walk away from this property by herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay. And I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer. I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back. And I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. Well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound.
Just go to the FBI, the police, and clear it up. I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of elusive.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck, and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. I mean, if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen. She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make
herself.
it, I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head so she wouldn't feel bad. And but
That's where I think that that's the fruit, the meat and potatoes of this case, is that interview. Because I mean, anyone that has any experience in law enforcement or interviewing and interrogating people can just see the deception screaming out from both of them. I'm going to let the attorney, Joe Murray, let him weigh in on this, because I know he's dying to say something.
Yes, I gotta tell you, Bill, I've said it several times about Candace just being a bad witness. I don't care if I walked up on a car accident and she witnessed the whole thing and I tried to interview her. I guarantee you I would get I would have such a hard time pulling the facts out of her, and they would be unreliable. So I don't think it's intentional that she sounds that way. I also want to say about Dave, you know, with somebody with his history and his background and his criminal record and his sex abuse allegations, don't you think that person is gonna, just having that in their head, be paranoid that people will be thinking he's guilty and react differently? I don't think you're going to get the same interview if he was 100% being honest. I still don't think you would get the observations you're making here. I think you're going to find that with somebody that's got baggage, they're not going to come across credibly, whether they are telling the truth or not. I just think these are two very damaged people that we really can't put great weight into their appearance of that we would compare any normal interview.
Yeah, I mean, we totally agree with that because their demeanor, just the way you would expect people to react.
So here's one thing I want to say about that interview, and I just now caught that, Bill, is that she was only gone for 2 minutes. So if what she is saying, that this individual came up wherever, only had 2 minutes to lure her away, correct?
That's right.
Because she walked her to the front door, told the kids to watch her. So by the time that she would have even went downstairs, I mean, that's probably a minute and a half. And then she came right back, and somebody, I mean, in the perimeter of that house, you can pretty much see everything because it's open until you get to past the driveways, the circular driveway, and then it's woods. So that doesn't even make sense to me with, I mean, Joe, Phil, I mean, what do you guys think?
She's full of baloney. I was going to say she's full of something else, but she's full of baloney. She didn't walk Summer back to the house. There's no reason. It's about a 20-yard difference. That's absolutely 100% a self-serving statement, in my opinion. The second thing I wanted to say is there's two things about that video clip that Bill played. And I noticed them before, but I really focused in on them now. She talks about, in the first couple of words, she says, there's no way that Summer walked away from this property. She's talking in absolutes. Now, I know that interview wasn't done right away, but if you look at that, she's talking about 100%. She's positive that she didn't walk away from the property. And number two, when the camera goes on Don, he says, well, I guess we got to let the FBI figure it out. He's too matter-of-factly. He's not looking at the camera. He's looking away. Those two things strike out at me. Like if I was the person doing the interview, that would raise me up, those two things. And I think that a lot of the story that they're giving and the stuff that they're saying now, based on the fact that the other children were taken away, they know the focus is on them. The media has been all over them, and I'm sure that they've been interrogated. So I think that anything that they say from 2 weeks into this thing forward is going to have self-serving statements. And a lot of the interviews that we saw, there were several interviews with both of them, and you could just pick out the things that they're saying that are just not true. I doubt very highly if she was going through all of this stuff and, they went and they did this, they did that. They were all over the place with the mother in the hospital, the emergency room, the drugstore, all the watering hole, swimming, all that. She comes back to the house and they're going to play with flowers or plant flowers by the mother's trailer that's 20 yards from the door. She's going to go walk Summer over. She's trying to say that it's a self-serving statement that I'm a good mother and I made sure she went in the house. Bullshit in plain English. I don't buy it.
All right, let me just throw this to follow up on what you're saying, because Phil, I do agree. I think that statement, I call it CPS bias. They know CPS is watching them. I don't know how long that case has been open and active, but they know that everything they say is going to be scrutinized by CPS. Now, even if this was an abduction, she's not going to say, just for self-preservation, I'll tell you why. She's not going to say, oh, when I got home, I went in, I took some of the pills with my mother, and we passed out for 2 hours. And then when I come up, I noticed her gone. She's never going to say that. And the biggest motivation for her to lie about that, even though we're talking about searching for her daughter, is that the other kids are going to be yanked so fast if she was honest about what happened. So I think we call that CPS bias because everything she's saying is to protect herself with the other kids. Now, here's another thing I want to throw out because this came out in the comments and I love that we're talking about it. People were commenting on, okay, usually she gives these one-word answers. You know, she's like, what did you do the rest of the day? Just regular stuff. You know, it was just pulling it out of her. Don't forget, she's already been interviewed by law enforcement. We got TBI, we have the FBI. Now, you know, during an interview, Phil, you talk about this all the time, locking down that statement, getting a good, solid interview with a lot of facts. So she says, when I got home, I walked in to grandma's, and then she went over to the house. The follow-up question would be, okay, did you see her go into the house? Yeah, I did see her go into. How did you see her go into the house? Well, I waited until she walked across and then went up the stairs. Well, who was home? The boys were. How do you know the boys were? Oh, because I walked halfway there and I saw them through the door. You see what I'm saying? Like, this probably came about.
Joe, we're getting a lot of echo on your mic. People in the chat are a great deal of.
Dave, I got a quick question for you, Dave. The amount of distance, I said it was about 20 yards between grandma's trailer and that door that she went in. Would you say that that's about correct? About 20 yards? Does that sound right?
I absolutely. Yeah, it's not that far.
Okay.
It's definitely a spot to where you wouldn't have to. And again, here's my thing: is why did she have to walk her to the door?
Right.
And again, you and Joe hit the nail on the head. It's self-preservation, trying to sit there and make herself look like Mother of the Year. When, you know, why would she sit there and go to that extreme to make sure that Summer got 20, 30 feet from her into the front door? She made sure that the boys were going to watch her, and then she made sure all this, but yet the girl's missing. So she took every precaution, according to her, to make sure that she was safe and sound, but yet she still came up missing. How does that happen?
Yeah, there's many things about their statements. Now, me as an investigator, and Bill, I'm sure you're going to agree with me. Maybe you could add to what I'm about to say. When I get statements from a person like Candace or Don, and it involves a missing 5-year-old kid, and those statements are going to be corroborated by us doing follow-ups with, I said this before, I would do, if I have to do in-person interviews to the places they went, that would be one thing. And I would get information. Did you see them? Then I would look at cell phones. Cell phones give you exact information on location when calls are made, pictures are taken. That's vital in this investigation, vital. That's one of many components of this investigation that we're talking about. But all of those things now, they make the statement, I was home, I went here, I went there, I went there, I came back, I was with my mother, I saw Summer go in the house, she's missing. Now, I would take apart every word of what she said and corroborate it. And then I would systematically impeach each one of the things that she said that I can by doing the follow-ups. And then she's back in the box. And then even the little things about you're lying about that you walked her to, why would you walk her? I would get that way. I would say, why did you walk her to the door? There's no reason. You were 20 yards away. And once you get her on one line, you get the flow going. I see Bill shaking his head. This is the way that you get somebody to tell you the truth. Correct, Bill?
You know, Phil, someone said in the chat, how are we going to get Candace and Don to tell the truth? And the way we're going to get them to tell the truth is through evidence, finding evidence that proves 100% that they're lying. And that's how we're going to get them to tell the truth. Other than that, you know, so many people are believing their crocodile tears, at them pointing fingers at this person, pointing fingers. Oh, they're besmirching us. No, you've done that yourself, you know, with the way you present yourself and the way you live your life. That's, you know, no one's like picking on you. You got a 5-year-old daughter who's missing. Half the world's looking for her. Half the world is praying that she's recovered alive. So when they start with that, oh, woe is me stuff, you know, we got folks out there. You got to understand, we're the real police, you know, and we did this for a living. And we did hundreds and hundreds of homicides, shootings, robberies. We investigated every type of crime. We've seen the best liars on earth, liars that could make a nun believe them, you know. And believe me, we've seen it all. And so when I see the interview with Don and Candace, it screams out at me like, I am lying, you know.
Liars, serial killers, cold-blooded murderers. And I've looked into the eyes of the devil, and I've said this before on several occasions. And there's a lot of things that are jumping out in this case. I think that if there was some type of an abduction, or which I don't think is even on the map anymore, it's not even on the radar screen as being possible, something would have came about with that. You know, the fact that there was, you know, she wasn't found, her remains weren't found is obviously imperative to the case, but there's a lot of things that I would have been drilling down on early on in this case. And I don't know, just I'm hoping that these things are being done behind the scenes, since we don't have, you know, access to the case folder. But, you know, anybody that, I said this before and I'm going to say it again, if I piss somebody off looking for a 5-year-old girl and I'm not going to get a Christmas card, I'm okay with that, because my goal is to try and find what happened to little Summer Wells. And it could be Summer Wells or any other case. Even if it's, listen, I've stood over dead bodies of drug dealers, known drug dealers that were bad guys, and we went at the people that were responsible for it just as hard as we would any other case, because that's what you do as an investigator. But in a case like this, a 5-year-old girl, I'm just doing what I got to do. You know, I'm not going to break the law, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it, you know?
Jan on the Lamb from Canada, thank you so much for the $13.99 super chat. Steve Colon, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. Folks, if you like this show, we're Police Off the Cuff. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Ring that bell. With me tonight is the sent from God, David Rader from Equusearch Midwest, and sent from law school, Joe Murray. And right out of Brooklyn, we got Phil Grimaldi. And,
fired up tonight. Fired up.
Fired up. Yeah, he's a little pissed off tonight, you know. But you know, Dave, another thing I wanted to ask you, and I found it a little surprising when you did the searches. The police didn't talk to you about the investigative end of it? Like, we're searching here because of this, we're searching here because of that. You want to comment about that?
Okay, so this was not an Equusearch case. We were brought in as a resource and manpower. So this really was not our case. So they're not going to sit down with me per se, because they have their, this is, you know, they sat down within themselves. So they sat down with Tim Coop because he's incident command. And the EMAs and in Hawkins County Sheriff. So they were, you know, that was them. Now, if this was my case, then yes, law enforcement, we work hand in glove. So we'll go over everything. So as the investigation is going on, I'm being fed, spoon-fed information that I'm being trusted with. As they're doing that end, then I, you know, with the information that I'm getting, then I'm taking that search and I'm moving it in a direction that coincides with what the investigation is going to, if that makes any sense. So
no, it makes sense, yeah.
So law enforcement did not talk to me in this case. I wish that they would have on the second trip when we came down, to have at least somebody kind of you know, say thank you, not even a thank you. I can't even go down that road, but just to say, okay, Dave, I know you're back into town. What's your thought process on this? How are you going to go about this? And then they, hopefully that they would have, because of our background and who we are, that they would have sat down and said, okay, this is what we have as far as for you. Now do your search accordingly. And I would have loved to have sat down with somebody. I reached out
100%.
to the detective on the case to see if he would talk to me, and I got no response back from Hawkins County. Like I said, the only communication that I had was through text messages with Tim Coop, and we all know how that turned out, and we've moved on from there. And not
Right. Duty Ron, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Also, thank you for all you do for Police Off the Cuff. He's helped me build my channel. We do what we call cross pollination. We appear on each other's shows. That's how you cross pollinate podcasts. You know, I think I invented that term. I don't know. I'm not sure, but
Bill, can I make one last point about before we go to
absolutely.
commercial or anything? What I said about Candace, I would go with a hard, and maybe what Joe said is exactly what's going on, that she could be innocent. It's possible. And maybe she's using that self-serving statement because she's worried about the other kids. But when I go at her for that, I want to know what's the truth. Tell me the truth. Did you walk her? And then she says, no, well, I said it. Okay. So now I know that she's being truthful. Now I'm getting her back onto the right track of being truthful. Tell me the truth about everything. And I would go through the whole story, and anything that I thought was a little bit off, I would drill down on that and get her to tell me, well, why did you say that you walked to the door? Let her tell me. Well, I was worried they were going to take my children away. This is how I'm going to develop belief in her statements and make her a credible witness, or she could be involved in the disappearance. And that's how that's how you go through these things. This is how you decide if a witness is telling the truth or not telling the truth. And I would say, listen, I'm not Child Protective Services. I'm investigating your daughter's missing. Tell me the truth, and we'll worry about that. And I've done that. A guy didn't want to tell me about something. There were drugs in the room, and I said, listen, I'm not a narcotics detective. I'm here investigating a homicide. Put that aside. Tell me the truth. And you get them to, you got to get them to believe you, obviously. And that was 100%. The narcotics is not playing in. It's the homicide we're talking about. And that's how I've always done my interviews and my investigations.
We're going to go to a quick break, guys, and we'll be right back. Keep those thoughts, and we're going to come back with that. Phil, I think you're going to do the first one here.
Okay. Are you tired of the same old surroundings, looking to relocate? Or are you just in the market and the need of a real estate agent in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area? Well, Carol Waters is your girl. Her and her husband, Rob Mahan, who's a retired member of the NYPD and the New York Fire Department, are both $1 million sales agents. Carol and her husband can be reached at 914-261-6681, 914-261-6681. Or you can email her at carolwaterssellsmb@gmail.com. That's carolwaterssellsmb@gmail.com. Joe Murray is present tonight, so this is a little awkward, but have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Or do you just need a victim's advocate? Joe Murray's your man. He's not only experienced as a trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. His website is jmurray-law.com. That's jmurray-law.com. His telephone is 646-838-1702, 646-838-1702, or email joe@jmurray-law.com. He knows both sides of the fence. He's been on both sides.
Police Coffee is an officer-owned business dedicated to crafting the finest coffees and blends. They'll provide you with the freshest coffee available. Each batch is roasted fresh by people who know what it means to stay vigilant. And our specialty coffees do not waste one drop when flavor is concerned. Our coffee is some of the best you'll find, but it also helps serve an important cause: giving back to our community. 50% of our profits go towards helping family members of police officers who fell in the line of duty. To order coffee and related products from policecoffee.com, just go to the website. That's the website, policecoffee.com. There are over 7 types of coffee to choose from. 50% of the profits, again, go to officers' families in need. For a 10% discount, use code OTC10. That's off the cuff 10. Folks, if you want something to read at the beach this summer, retired first grade detective Michael O'Keefe is an author of 3 novels: Shot to Pieces, A Reckoning in Brooklyn, and Burnt to a Crisp. I've read all 3 of them. Amazing books. You can order his books on Amazon.com or on his website, michaelo'keefeauthor.com. Michael O'Keefe, I'm saying O'Keefe was a police officer in 1992 that got into a life or death fight with a drug dealer named Kiko Garcia. Luckily, Michael O'Keefe came out alive and Kiko Garcia didn't survive the encounter. But the book, Shot to Pieces, sort of is autobiographical. And these books, I can't tell you, they're amazing. Amazon.com or order on michaelo'keefeauthor.com. We're back.
Can I get a radio check in Central?
You're good.
All
5 by 5.
5 by 5 now.
Glad to be back. Can I throw something out there? I just want to tell a quick little story, and this pertains to you, Dave. I was in high school. I worked at a gas station. And at the gas station back then, everybody usually paid cash. You know, a few credit cards, but everybody paid cash. I was dealing with cash so often, I could spot a fake bill. I mean, there were people that would get creative. They would cut the corners off of 10 and put it on a 1 and try. So, but I was nailing them because I did it so often. You, with your expertise, doing this on a regular basis should be priority number 1 in a case like this. And I am horrified to learn from you. They're not giving you the facts. They're not giving you their timeline. They're not giving you, I mean, of all people, you need to know that. Wouldn't you agree?
Wholeheartedly. I mean, you know, I'm on their team, and I'm the extension of them, trying to help them. Again, they don't have the resources, guys. I mean, we know how law enforcement agencies right now are struggling just to get people on the street, let alone, you know, in the investigation end of this. So, you know, again, I can't even tell you how many times that we've been turned down on cases. As you know, now we can do this ourselves, and it's I don't, you know, again, we're free. I have some of the best technology at my fingertips. If I don't have it, I know where to get it, and it's all free to them. So why would you not want to dedicate your investigation team to do what you guys do best while we're out there covering the ground and eliminating areas for them? So
doing what you do best.
Correct.
Just shocking to me, and that's I had to throw that out there.
But you know, that's what I go through that a lot. I mean, it's not just them. I mean, I've had other municipalities tell me no.
Listen, with all the police departments in the country, any small police department that doesn't have a lot of manpower, I mean, the NYPD, when I was on, it was up as high as almost 40,000 police officers. So the need to have a search team like yours to come in really wasn't there. But these small departments, I mean, they'd be crazy. And then knowing the technologies you have, they obviously, whoever turned you down didn't know what extent that you guys go to, what technology that you have, and how professional you guys are. And if they did, shame on them. They wasted a good resource.
Yep, I agree.
You know, Dave, do you expect to be called back to Tennessee on this case?
Do I?
Yes.
After everything that's went through, Bill, I would hope. But why didn't somebody, if that was the case, why in the hell did they rang my phone?
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like a dissing. I would take that as a diss, you know, and that's New York for disrespect. We lose the second part, a diss. I don't know if they use that term in Ohio.
Right.
I can understand what's going on though, Dave. And I mean, I might put this out there and might be wrong, but I might be right. Sometimes, you know, there's a lot of focus on it. They don't get a lot of these cases, and they're trying to be the ones that come up with finding her or finding her remains. And that's what I think it's coming down to at this point. There might have been a little bit of a piss and match between the FBI, the TBI, Cook, and you know, I'm going to say it outright. There had to be something, because they should have you guys out there as much as they can if they're really in search of this young lady. So I mean,
No, I agree. And again, my whole thing is, they want to do this themselves, but then when they don't succeed, people are saying, well, why didn't you have them? So to
yeah,
me, I would much rather sit there and throw every damn thing that you've got in your arsenal, because then nobody can sit there and say, you didn't do this.
right.
No, you did do it because you threw every damn thing at it. So why not be proactive instead of reactive and throw every damn thing at it? Because in that way, nobody can come back and blast TBI, FBI, or Hawkins County for not putting the resources out there, especially when they're damn free. I mean, they just went through a hell of a council meeting on their budget that they did for this little girl. You know, money should become a damn factor in this shit. This should be, put all your differences aside. Do it for free. Do it for the sake of a 5-year-old. And I don't care if it's a 5-year-old or a 55-year-old. It's still a human being. It's still somebody's loved one. You don't have enough compassion that you have to attach a damn dollar bill to it? It doesn't make sense to me.
And you guys are free. So, I mean, that would be a waste of a resource if they don't use you.
Absolutely.
You're free, but you're
Look who just joined us.
Rudy Ron.
Hi, Ron. Oh, look at that.
Got the hat.
Look at that.
You know, someone
guys
just
hear me?
made a comment
I
in the
can't hear
chat.
you guys.
Someone just made a comment in the chat, Diane Harlow. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous
Yeah,
and it
right.
makes me mad. I cried when I heard that California turned down the help. So ridiculous. And we need these boys and we need summer. Duty Ron, I know you know all about that case. I don't know if I could see that. What does it say?
It's a bracelet.
Lost in.
Yeah, terrible. We got the word today that Bakersfield turned down Equusearch going down out there, which to me was just horrifying. But you know what? It says couple of things. It may be that they have something in the works, and I'm taking it as a positive that they don't need us to go out there and search, or it could be something that they feel like they have it covered and they don't need extra eyes. I don't know, but I wanted to come on and show the swag that Dave came today. The Texas Equusearch. I still got the Midwest Equusearch. I still got the tags on it. I got the shirt. It fits me good. It's not like a form-fitting shirt. It's nice and loose, and I got a package.
It's not a
for you too,
cheapy
Bill.
shirt. It looks like. Looks
I
like
gotta
good
get it over to
quality
you. It gives
stuff.
me an excuse to see you again.
You know, some of the folks in the chat are also talking about whether or not the phone records.
I don't know why I can't hear you guys, so I got to put the phone up to my ear to hear you.
Okay. Some people in the chat are saying, have the phone records come back yet? They absolutely should be back by now.
Oh,
It's,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's
I'm so
over
glad.
50 days today, I believe it is. So yes, they should be back. But I mean, that is the evidence that we would all be waiting for. The electronic evidence that could prove certain things that right now on Facebook and on a lot of these chats are just conjecture.
I'm so glad that came up because I wrote down a couple of things. Now, I talked earlier about corroborating their statement. We lost Duty Ron, I guess. Corroborating their statements. Now, cell phone technology is going to give you 100% accuracy as regard to who they called, where they were when they called. That's 100%. Whoever has the phone is questionable. But the actual technology, if you say, this is my phone, this is where I was, but your phone shows you was somewhere else, or the time is different. So that's 100%. Video cameras don't lie. They're 100%. If a person is picked up on a video camera in the hospital, the 7-Eleven, the Walgreens, wherever they were, that's 100%. And it gives you a timestamp. And you can always go back and check to make sure that the time on the video camera is correct. The third thing is in-person interviews. Now, they're not 100% because people could have reason to lie, but generally, a stranger is not going to lie about seeing a woman with a little girl. So those three things are so important to this case. I talked about it earlier. That is how I would impeach the statements that were made by Candace, Don, the grandmother, anybody, anybody in this case. I would use the technology after I had the good, strong interviews done in the beginning, and I would go back and I would pick apart all the little things. And like I said, maybe you can also eliminate them as being suspect involved in this disappearance because she lied. Candace lied about walking to the house with Summer. Maybe there's some truth to that. She was covering her ass. You can get that out of her. Why did you say that? And you're pointing out things that she lied, and then it's going to come through. Oh, maybe they know about this. Maybe they know about that. Every interview is different, but that's how I would attack this case at this point. Those records, I'm so glad that question came up. That's 100% cell phone, 100% video, and then in-person interviews. Unless you have reason to lie, those are usually 100% as well.
Someone in the chat said that we were only 80% because now that Duty Ron's here, we're 100%.
Here we go.
We love Duty Ron too, but we didn't think we were only 80%. I thought we were still 100. Now we're 120, I think.
Whoever said that, I like them.
So listen, I want to throw something out there. Tell me what you guys think. Just an observation. Now, we all looked at Candace's statement and we criticized it and show the contradictions in it. What do you think Don is doing looking at her statement? And does it strike you as funny how there's not the slightest bit dissension amongst them? It's not even like, I can't believe it. You lost, our daughter under your watch. What were you doing? They are, in lockstep with each other, not questioning each other, 100% complimenting each other. Oh, yes, no, she would never leave the property. We taught her about the bears and the snake. Yeah, that's true. Like, everything seems to be, they're united in their story. And there is not the slightest bit of, and Don doesn't strike me as a guy that would hold back from tearing into Candace if he didn't believe her or didn't like what she said. I just find that a little suspicious. Did anyone else pick?
Joe, I think they're both lying, and one lies and the other one's backing up the other one's story because they both know what happened to Summer.
So that's where I was getting at. Do you think they're both complicit in whatever happened? Like, we don't know what happened. There's a number of different theories. Maybe a tragic accident that they wanted to cover up. Do you think that's what it is, or do you think maybe something out of their control happened and they're just being honest about their ignorance to it?
Well, why no emotion?
Like I said, these are not, I would say, your average people that you're going to interview. They're just not. Don has so much baggage. I'm sure he sat through plenty of police interviews in his 30 years of criminal history. And again, I'm hearing about all of their history with CPS. They both had kids taken away from them. I'm sure there's a lot of, hardness that comes with that. I mean, when you've been through the fire again and again, it kind of takes, it has its toll on you. So I'm not sure that we should be looking at them, as pure individuals that have no experience in either criminal justice or CPS.
I really think the point you're making, Joe, is that they got their story straight. It sounds like that. But on the other hand, I would think, from a law enforcement perspective, if the mother and father of a missing 5-year-old girl were taking unnecessary heat, I think a statement would come out of the police, whether it be the TBI or FBI, and say, we don't think that the mother and father are involved, or we don't see them as persons of interest. They could say something to try and take the heat off them a little. We haven't seen that, and we've seen quite erratic behavior by Don recently between Facebook and the internet, and he got drunk. He had a drinking, well, I forgot the word that he used, a drinking incident when the day with the kids were taken. So I don't know if the pressure is getting to him or the walls are closing in, that he's got something to hide, but there's definitely inconsistencies, and I see non-truths in both of their statements. And like I said, I would be using all the technology at my fingertips, the cell phones, the cameras, the in-person interviews, to impeach their testimony. Well, not their testimony, impeach their statements and go on from there. And there might be logical reasons why they're saying the things that they're doing. And you make a great point, Joe. They're not your everyday witness. You know, they're not white collar workers. They're just ordinary people or whatever, and they have some issues and they have criminal history and all of that. But they're trained maybe to tell lies when they're dealing with law enforcement. So let's put aside what lies they're telling and the reasons why, and let's get to the truth. And it goes down in the box in the interview room. That goes down in the interview room.
Phoenix Rising says he told Chris he doesn't drink anymore, and he doesn't drink any less either.
So that we're supposed to believe that.
Right, exactly.
So I wanted to say one thing, and then I'm going to get out of here because I have to get to bed. I want to say that Candace, I feel, exhibits the battered woman syndrome. She is controlled by Don and a lot of the things that she does. Look at the domestic violence. She filled out a DIR and wrote in her own handwriting that she was in fear for her life and for her kids' life. And then when Don got a hold of that, he explained it as it was a big misunderstanding. We had this misunderstanding, and she was wrong. She went to the judge, as a matter of fact, and told the judge that everything was fine. So I think that a lot of this narrative and story is being controlled by Don, and he's just going along with it. You know, so.
Yeah, Ron, I appreciate your assessment on this, but I mean, we're used to a little different response to domestic violence in New York City than they have here. That incident in October when he had a gun in the car, he was drunk, he threatened her life. In New York City, that would have been a must arrest. He would have been arrested, and Candace wouldn't be able to say, I don't want to prosecute, because we would have just said, well, people state of New York will prosecute then, because we're not going to let this guy walk, especially when he's a predicate felon.
Good point, Bill. The district attorney's office in New York, in that case, well, I don't know if they would now with all the bail reform and everything and these very liberal DAs, but when I was on the job, and I was on the job up until 2003, a case like that where, you have an uncooperative female complainant, but she wrote out the DIR like Ron said, she stated all the things that happened, he was drunk, he was found with a gun, they would go ahead and prosecute him without her based on the DIR and the complaint report that night, and they would try to get him to plead guilty to something. If not, they probably would even take him to trial and make her an uncooperative or hostile witness.
Yeah, it was hard for me to believe that in that case, the police didn't even pursue it. They just let him go. I mean, in New York City, I was a sergeant. If I walked away from a situation like that, I would be concerned that the husband would kill the wife. And if I walk away, they're going to be looking for Sergeant Cannon to find out what time he was here and why he didn't take proper police action.
It's a must-arrest situation right there.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Sergeant Cannon will be calling Joe Murray.
Yeah,
that's right. I'll get Joe. I have to pull up that flyer again. Try to get Joe Murray's website and his phone number. I can't afford the $6.50 an hour though.
That's why he's staying so quiet. He wants those must-arrests. More work for him.
Let me say thank you to Dave for sending out the swag for me and Bill. I have a package for Bill. It came today. I appreciate the all of this stuff. It was completely unnecessary. I was just hoping for maybe a wristband. So thank you.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure.
I'm gonna go. Good night, Bill and chat, Joe Murray and Phil. I appreciate you letting me come on. I really wanted to come on and show this off. So. Thanks for letting me do it, and have a good the rest of your stream.
Julie Ron, thank you. Thank you
Take
for
care,
everything
Lonnie.
you do, man.
Take care.
Have a great night.
Hey, Dave, I got a quick question for you. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe. Go.
Oh, okay. I just want to throw this out there because I struggle with this. I'm really looking at I'm seeing all the things you're seeing, but in the back of my head, I'm seeing kind of excuses for what we're seeing. And it's really bugging me. And do you think it's possible? I mean, yes, everything is pointing to Don and Candace. They really are. They're the parents. They're the last people claiming to have seen them. There's just so much there. But the fact that they both keep coming out, not even together, individually giving statements, is it possible that these two bad people, just to give them a term, bad people, bad witnesses, bad parents, whatever you want to call them, is it possible that they really are ignorant to what happened, and that maybe it was someone else?
But then that goes back to my thing, Joe, is as far as why isn't there any kind of emotions? Then if that is the truth, I would be on every damn platform I could sit there, and instead of trying to defend myself, I would be sitting there saying, hey, whoever's got my daughter, every single time that I could possibly get onto a microphone or get my face out there to beg these people that actually has my daughter, there's no emotions. And I guess I'm just I'm dumbfounded on that. And again, I know everybody handles stress and different scenarios differently, but I just don't see this pleading that if this really truly did happen and somebody has my daughter, I am getting on there and begging, please let her go.
You know, the joy catcher says, could they have met up before coming home, met somewhere halfway? Was he really at work even? Joy catcher, I 100% agree with you. I think they collaborated together and something happened to Summer. That's my opinion. I don't think she ever made it home that day. And I think there's some other folks here that believe the same thing. You know, I hate, again, using the duck analogy. If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, if it swims like a duck, it's a duck. All right.
You think it's a duck? Put a duck in the chat. Here they come.
Joe, you know, I gotta say, I think you make a good point that the possibility does exist that they're just, you know, like you said, they're bad witnesses. But all the inconsistencies that we found, why aren't they either commenting about them, or why isn't there a more solid interview where they're explaining these things? I mean, us being outside of the case from a far distance away of pointing out all these different things, and they need to be addressed. I want to know why she said that she walked Summer up to that door. A lot of things, you know, and I think that if they were being truthful or somewhat truthful and they weren't involved in it, the evidence from the cell phones, the evidence from the video cameras, the evidence from the interviews, I think all of that would have been enough to clear them. And I think law enforcement might, and a lot of times they'll do it. They'll talk about a missing woman. They'll say, well, the husband, you know, went on the news and police say he's not a person of interest. They're not saying that in this case. And the thing that I was going to ask Dave was, have you had any experience, and I hate to even bring this up, it's a horrible thought, but where they search, you know, like a garbage dump? Is there, have you had experience with that, or did that go on in this case? Do we know, Dave?
That I don't know. The only experience that I had on that, Phil, is I was on a case back in 2011 with Lauren Spears out of Bloomington, Indiana, the IU student that went missing. Actually,
yeah, we did that case.
Yeah,
Lauren Spear, yeah.
Yes.
From New York. And I spent 6 weeks in Bloomington, Indiana, with Rob and Charlene looking for their daughter. Spent a lot of time with them. And what they did is immediately, because she walked through the alley, PD locked it down after 3 days. The garbage dump of where all your trash is actually GPS to where it's dumped. So going back to that day that she went missing, they cordoned off. It didn't allow any more dumping to go on there until they got a court order to search the dump. And I think at the time, and I'm going back off of memory, but it was 128 feet by 72 feet by 22 feet deep, just in that 3 days from that trash. And it took FBI, Bloomington PD, IU PD. There was like 4 or 5 different municipalities that spent 2 weeks going through that trash. That is, once you know that, you know, that's a possibility, and locking that down. By the time that you sit there and even think about that, the amount of trash that's dumped in there and you would have to go through would be absolutely astronomical.
You know,
Yeah,
Dave,
cool.
we all were 9/11 first responders, and they would bring all the debris from the towers. They'd float it downriver to a place called Fresh Kills in Staten Island.
Mhm.
And they would dump it in this huge dump, and we would manually sift through it with machines also. But it was the most heinous job. And, lots of bodies were recovered that were missed when they were searching at Ground Zero, body parts, all kinds of things. And, I'm sure we all have little PTSD from that. And, it's not a pleasant thing. And I mean, I've said it to you a million times, you do God's work, and you absolutely do God's work. Doing this stuff is just incredible. Search and Rescue Canine Mom. Thank you so much for the $14.99 super chat. I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Good. I just said we all do it. We all do what's right. And there's more good in this world than there is evil, guys.
I 100% agree with you. You know something? There's a book out that used to be the Bible of homicide investigation. I don't know if it still is. It was called Practical Homicide Investigation by Vernon Gebert, who was a retired NYPD homicide lieutenant. And one of the things he said was, we work for God. We don't work for the complainant. We work for God, because the person that lost their life, they're hoping that someone gives their family and their loved ones closure in doing this thing. We 100% hope that this case will be solved, and one of the things that we spoke about before, and I understand why the police keep this stuff close to the vest, but I wish they would just do a press conference just to say, look, we have a direction, we're working on it, and, not even giving all kinds of information out, just to say that we have it, because right now there's so many rumors. And, you look at Facebook, you look at YouTube, people are all over the place, and all of these internet sleuths, I guess they mean well, but, they don't know what evidence means to an investigation. And you can comment about things that appear as fact on YouTube, but in fact are not fact, because the people that have the evidence can disprove that. But we don't have that luxury right now. We said it a million times. We're not privy to the case folder. We don't know what they have. And having said that, you can't really say, oh, this is this and that is that. And you can't talk in absolutes. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Listen, they can put out a statement without taking any questions and just say, we've made some progress in the case. We have a direction that we're going in. We're still continuing the searches. We still have all the possibilities still on the table. Something general, just to show that, that there is some type of progress being made. That's a simple statement. It could take a minute or two without taking any questions, and it might change the whole course of this thing.
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of. Go ahead, Joe. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I just want to point out, I love, as you know, reading the comments, and now even the chat. They have the smartest people that come up with, let's just take Sylvia Brown. She says, Joe, you have the best reading on C&D. How smart is this woman? She's pointing that out, that I have the smartest read on them. I'm just kidding around. But I just do want to say this. The fact that I'm a criminal defense attorney, I get a lot of repeat customers. I do a good job for them. I get them out, whatever. They come back. The one thing I can tell you that I do, I can't teach them how to be better criminals. It's unethical. But I teach them about the law and their rights. Most of all, and most importantly, is the right to remain silent. I drive it through their skulls. Don't come to me with this bag of garbage next time where I have statements from you, you're on TV, you're doing this, you're doing that. I have to believe someone like Don, who's had an extensive criminal record, served prison time, that he would be able to just control himself, maybe make a couple of comments, but this guy's out here doing interview after interview after interview. Talk about red flags to a criminal defense attorney. The guy knows better And the fact that he's doing it is starting to sway me. Yes, he's got a lot of baggage. Yes, this guy's not a likable guy. He's arrogant. He's a narcissist. But he's also an ex-con, and he's been arrested and had lawyers talking to him again and again. I'm telling you, I did a suppression hearing. Today I was in court. We got the decision. And one of the issues was, as a Huntley hearing, whether or not the statements would be suppressed or they were voluntary given. That's the law, whether or not it was an involuntary statement or voluntarily made. When I have this hearing, I drive home to my client. Do you see what I'm talking about? Do you see this? God forbid they get arrested again. They know. It's really bugging me as a criminal defense attorney, somebody with his record doing interview after interview after interview, and he's doing it not with Candace, he's doing it on his own. What do we do as cops? We separate people. We let them tell their stories and we separate them. So just going, I mean, making a statement is one thing, but they're sitting down for interviews. I'm really starting to second guess this. And, you know, the emotion and stuff, Dave, that's so true. We're talking about severely damaged people, you know, that have had such trauma caused by themselves, self-inflicted, no doubt. But I remember as a young cop, when the first time I got a CD, a command discipline, I was like terrified. Oh my God.
Many more to follow, I might add.
Many more. I got suspended 3 times and arrested in uniform. By that time, I was like, yeah, okay.
So when we say you've been on both sides of the fence, that also three sides of the fence.
Yeah.
That's like an inside thing. I'm trying to say it without saying it. He's really been on both sides of the
Not
fence.
guilty 100%. I won every trial that came out of that.
Thank God.
But
Thank
the
God.
point being, you can't shake me now. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why
Right.
there's no emotion. That's what, there's so many scars. He's been there. He's again, self-inflicted. Both of these people have had kids taken away. You know, that kind of trauma over time just kind of deadens you.
So it kind of makes it humble.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Joe, I got to make a point. Delana in the chat says, so Dave Rader is saying most of the time families of missing children usually work with him and not against him. And I think that's a fantastic point based on what he was just talking about with the Spirit case. Now, Dave, can you tell us, did it seem like they were thankful or that they were working with you when you were doing the searches?
As far as with on Don and Candace?
Candace and Don, yes, on this case, on the Summer Wells case.
The only time that I seen Candace was the last trip in town when I brought my team to the watering hole, because I wanted the team to see this. I wanted them to kind of get a feeling and then work backwards a little bit and see what that area. We weren't going to search it. We were just getting kind of our points of interest in order. And then that's when we rolled up with Chris and Candace, and that's when he was doing the interview. Now the place is not that big. I think there's 10 or 15 tops parking spaces. I come rolling in with probably about 8 cars, and in our green search tops, and we sat there for probably about 15-20 minutes. And at no point in time did she even say, hey, let me go over and at least say hi or thank you for coming and looking for my daughter. So I had no interaction. It's not, again, 10 times out of 10 until this case, the families are just so overwhelmed that you're there and give a damn about their loved one. We don't know them from Adam, but we're showing the love by coming and trying to sit there and look and give them the answers that they're looking for. Because there's, again, we care. We want to bring them closure one way or another.
So I'm going to sound like a defense attorney when I say this, but So would you say, with all the searches you've done, it's not typical behavior that they exhibited, that typically people would be thankful or meet with you? Would that be fair, what I just said?
Absolutely. That's absolutely fair. I mean,
So that's another thing. They're not exhibiting typical behavior. There's so
can
many
I,
different things.
Can I
Joe,
recall-
hang on one second. I just want to read this comment by Cheated No More. Dawn Marie asks, please ask the panel if it is possible that an abductor took Summer in front of the boys and threatened them to not tell. Well, our feelings are that didn't happen. I mean,
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
According to Candace, they were in two separate areas. The kids were upstairs. She was downstairs. And there was only a 2-minute time frame where she was literally left by herself, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
you're
but
right.
right there, you deal what that woman said, that scenario. I mean, you would drill down on those young boys, and it wouldn't take much to get them to say the truth. I don't care how much fear they had. We're going to protect you. You're in a police station. Nobody's going to harm you. Your parents are on your side. You know, you would get them to tell you the truth if that were the case. I doubt that that's even possible at this point.
Well, but Phil, you hit it on the head. At this point, the police know the truth. They've interviewed those 3 boys.
I'm sure.
So they have their statements. So that is another thing that to me is almost a smoking gun. And they know that, but we don't know that. We don't know that for sure.
But
Bill,
doesn't
as
that
a
lend
sergeant
to-
in the homicide squad, I'm sorry, Joe, I just got to ask him this because he just made a really good point. As a sergeant in homicide squad, I go into the box with another detective to do an interview of those kids one at a time. I come out of the room. First thing you're going to ask me, what did he tell you? Do you believe him? That's the first thing you're going to say to me. And I'm going to have an opinion. I'm going to say, yeah, he's not lying. He's telling the truth. If I think he's telling the truth, or if I think he's being deceptive, I'll say, boss, listen, we got to go back at this kid. We got to find out this and that. Correct, Bill? Wouldn't you say that's the way it would be?
Yeah, 100%. And those are the facts that the police know now that us folks on YouTube, content creators, I'll call us, we don't have all those
We don't
facts.
know. Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Joe. You were going to say something?
Joe Murray, come on. You're 3 sides of the fence and you're not talking right now.
2 things now. Dave Rader, this is my cross-examination after Philly got you on direct. He asked you, have you ever seen that reaction before? And you said no. Well, that's not typical, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, have you ever had parents of missing kids that you were looking for who were convicted felons that went to prison, had children removed, had ACS cases? When you talk that this is atypical, have you ever had in your searches a pair like this?
Well, here's my response to that, Joe, is that I don't get into the backgrounds of the parents. That's not my job.
Objection.
Wait, somebody's got to swear Dave in. He's got to be sworn in.
You got to read him Miranda when he's asking him questions like this. You know.
So again, my whole thing is I don't do the background of the parents. So I wouldn't know. I mean, my job, right, at that point in time is I'm focused on the individual that's missing to bring them home, not only for law enforcement but also for that family. What they've done prior to it, unless somebody sits there and tells me, I have no idea what their background is.
I just want to say, look, one thing. I've dealt with career criminals, murderers from all over the world. And one thing they all have in common is that they can't tell the truth. They lie. I wouldn't believe one word that comes out of Don's mouth. I don't care how experienced his interviewer is. He's full of shit. He's a liar. He's a convicted felon. And he's got not just a criminal. He's got a sex abuse history too. The guy, and then he hides behind the Lord. I have no patience for that either. I've seen everyone that's in prison all of a sudden finds the Lord. Maybe you should have found the Lord when you were out, robbing people, killing people,
Bill, you're so right, because whatever statement he made in the beginning, your reaction to it, what you're saying right there, that would have been the reaction, and you would have punched holes in it. You would have found the inconsistencies, and you would have went back and you would have, corroborated or uncorroborated what he was saying. Go ahead, Dave. You
I
want to
gotta
say
go
something?
back to these guys, Candace and Don, as damaged as they are, all busted up for their past history, drug use, alcohol, as bad as they are with their histories and track record, they've been so cooperative with the police, unwaveringly answering questions. Anyone that'll stick a mic in their face, they're answering questions.
We don't know that they've been that cooperative with the police, though, Joe. We know that they did interviews in it. We don't know that for fact, do we?
What I can say is, and we've seen what's typical, the police would come out and say, yeah, they've shut us down. That has not happened.
Yeah, but Joe, the police haven't said anything, so
True.
they might not say that either. They haven't said a word.
I just see this as, maybe we got to give them at least an inch, because they're not doing it the way we want them to do it, but they are putting themselves out there, open to whatever. You want to split us up and interview us? Okay. You want to interview me for a third and fourth time? Okay. That is really striking to me, particularly for someone, like I said, I preach it to my clients. I show them, like this guy today, here's the decision. All of those statements you made are now coming in at your trial. Good job. You're going to do that again next time? So I can't believe that he's not that dumb.
Joe, if I was still on the job, I'd be beeping you out as you said all of that.
No, I'm going to tell you, if I had a client turning himself in and Joe walked in the room with him, I'd be like,
Oh no.
not again, Joe, you're killing me. Because if anybody, when I read that commercial earlier for Joe, if anybody watched the little back and forth we just had with Dave, that proves that he's a good, very good attorney. He's very good.
Thank you, Phil. There's another. I love these people.
On that. I didn't get any feedback.
That was the perfect answer. That was the perfect answer. That's what a professional.
That's why he
do.
Objected. That's why he said objection.
That's unresponsive. Move to strike.
So here's another factor, guys. We're forgetting about another piece of the puzzle here. Yeah. We're forgetting about Grandma.
Right.
No, we've talked about her.
We've mentioned Grandma before, because she's also been interviewed by the police.
All right, so you've got Grandma, but don't forget, her daughter is also missing out of Wisconsin.
Right. So, in her initial statement, she wouldn't be getting out of the room until I was satisfied what she was telling me was, for the most part true. And that would go for Don, and that would go for Candace. I mean, we got a 5-year-old kid missing here. And I said it before, I don't care if I'm going to piss people off. I'm going to go with them as hard as I can. And if I think they're long, I'll talk to you nicey when I think you're giving me, good information and you're being truthful. But the minute that you start lying, and I know you're lying, that's when things turn. I go from good cop to bad cop like that. Situation like that, right, Bill? Wouldn't you say that's the way to
something? Look, 100%. I just, the only thing I really struggle with in this case is that, again, we don't know what the police have. Right. We don't know what they actually have done. We don't know the evidence that's come back. Everyone online could, say things and report them as facts, but they're not facts unless they're corroborated, vetted, and tested against the evidence. And we don't know if any of that is the truth, I think, guys, we've been going for an hour and 23 minutes, and I know Dave, it's probably past his bedtime. I know he's got another. It's
just like an On Duty Ron show. I've got 62%, Bill.
Oh, okay. He's on his phone. He may not make it too much longer. But Dave, we really so appreciate you, man. You're a godsend. And I just, for folks, you can donate to Midwest Equusearch on his website. I think I connected it down here on my site, or else you can just Google it, Midwest Equusearch, and they have a part there that you can donate. they're totally a 501c3 company, right? And
Yes.
they're this non-for-profit. And talk about doing God's work. These folks are doing God's work, and that's for sure. I'm going to give everyone the last word because we're coming up on that dangerous part of the night where Joe Murray has to go to bed because he's got to be in court in the morning. So let me let Joe go first. Go ahead, Joe.
You know, I love these people here. Bev is me made a comment. Would you defend him? I would absolutely, as someone who was wrongfully accused and everybody was convinced I was guilty, I would definitely defend him no matter how bad it looks, because what I'm really defending is the Constitution, the law, due process. And if he's guilty, we'll find that out. But everyone is entitled to a defense. Even when it looks so bad, it might not be accurate. And I think there is so many reasons to hate Don Wells. There's so many things that I don't like about him, but it doesn't make him guilty of this abduction or whatever else happened. He may in fact be guilty, but he deserves to be subject to the crucible of our criminal justice system, testing the evidence against him until there is a verdict beyond a reasonable doubt. Amen.
Joe, you go on. Joe, you go on any longer, I'm going to start crying. Phil, straight out of Brooklyn, what do you got?
Listen, I'm okay with Joe saying he would defend Don if he were to be arrested, or any defendant. I've had cases where I had a good rapport with defense attorneys where, you know, we finished the case for the day. We went and sat in a bar and had a drink. We didn't discuss too much about what was going on, maybe stuff that already happened, but without getting into each other's way on a case like that. And then I've had defense attorneys that followed me into the bathroom on a recess on a triple homicide and starts telling me, you know, my client didn't do it. I mean, totally unethical. So there's both sides of the fence. I think that the criminal justice system that we have in the United States is the best in the world. There is obviously some issues with it at times. I said OJ the last time. I'll say it again. That's an example. But for the most part, we're okay with it. Dave, I'm just so happy to be in the company of everyone here tonight. You guys do great work. Thanks again. And I'll kick it to you, Dave.
I appreciate that, Phil. And Joe, thanks for the grilling. That was phenomenal. I hope I didn't say too much.
He's a good witness.
So,
You know, Dave, even though this is a very serious matter, you have to have some laughs too. You know,
you do. Or else you're going to go absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But here's the bottom line, guys. We can sit there and we spend an hour and 27 minutes so far and some change going over Don and Candace. But the real thing, the real story is here, fellas, and out there is little Summer Wells. I mean, that's bottom line is we still have a 5-year-old that is still missing that needs to be found. And with the good Lord willing, I'm willing to go back down there. I know my team is fighting at the bit to go back down there. And all it takes is somebody to pick up the phone, dial it, and let's lock and load. Let's not give up on this girl. You know, not when there's people out there that give a damn, and she still needs to be found. So let's not lose focus. We can sit there and talk all night about guilty, not guilty, emotions, shit like that. But the bottom line is, guys, we've got a 5-year-old girl that still needs to be brought home.
Dave, you know something, you're 100% correct. And that is the bottom line, is that we all hope that she could still be found alive. It's been 50 days since she's been reported missing. And that, of course, is the goal of everyone in law enforcement, everyone in Equusearch. And I mean, you know, you hit it on the head. I just want to thank all you guys for coming on this show tonight. Phil Grimaldi, straight out of Brooklyn. Joe Murray, straight out of the courtroom. And, of course, David Rader, straight out of Ohio. You guys are, I mean, look, we got to go out drinking some night. We'll have to go to a mutual state somewhere in between Ohio and New York, though, right? Or maybe,
Sounds like a
meet,
plan to me. Sounds like
or maybe we could go and help you on a search one day. I would love to do that. I really
That
would.
be phenomenal. That would
You know.
absolutely be phenomenal. If I ever get up into that area, you bet your butt that I'm making 4 phone calls, and 3 of them are right here, and the other one just probably went to bed. So
That's great.
so
Folks, thank you so much for listening tonight. I know this is a New York accent. Some of you do like it. Everyone loves Phil Grimaldi, and then they love David Rader. You know, Dave's a handsome guy. Joe
forget
Murray.
about it.
Yeah, no one said, "Hey, Bill's cute." I don't know. Every once in a while you could throw one my way, but that's all right. I'll survive. Anyway, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff on behalf of Phil Grimaldi, Joe Murray, and David Rader. Good night, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Stay safe, everyone.